It is January 26, 2021, and this is the latest travel news for international travel. Follow along. Just a quick update. Mayor Daniel Quintero of Medellin, Colombia, has decided not to follow the rest of the Aburra Valley with the nightly curfews through the weekdays from Monday through Friday until the 2nd of February. He states today, just 3 hours ago, that he's going to decide whether or not he's going to follow along tomorrow on Wednesday. Anyway, just want to throw that out there. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is you're located. It is January 26, 2021. If that date sounds familiar to you, it is the date that the United States is requiring either a PCR test or a rapid antigen test to re-enter to the United States. So I was up late last night. It's 6 o'clock in the morning right now. I'm getting up early for you guys. So late last night, I noticed that there was a good question and answer section on the CDC's website. So I want to run through that as well as a couple other things that have to do with testing and so on in Colombia. So let's just jump right in. First story, this is from the United States Embassy in Colombia. The website, I'll leave a link below, but it's co.usembassy.gov. And then you just come to the COVID-19 page. But here, I'm going to run through this again as quickly as I can. So COVID-19 testing, are PCR and or antigen test available for U.S. citizens in Colombia? Yes. So you can get tested there. I get this question every day. Are test results reliably available within 72 hours? Yes. The Colombian Health Ministry maintains a list of facilities that provide COVID-19 tests. Click here. So you want to come to this link first, then you want to click here. It's going to bring you to this page now. It looks like it's in Spanish. Well, it is in Spanish, but what you need to do is scroll down. So just come back to this video, scroll down. There's a lot of stuff on this page and it's all in Spanish, but you want to come to this section right here where it says laboratorios, whatever it says right there off to the right-hand side. And you want to click that. There's a list of all the test sites in Colombia. So you want to download this PDF and you want to zoom in, and it's by city. It's really, really small right now, but you want to zoom in and, go to Medellin or Bucaramanga or Cali or wherever you are. This is for the entire country of Colombia. So yes, this list does exist. I did a few videos before and gave you a few locations that you can visit, but here is the official list from Colombia. So let's jump back to this one again. So the Colombian Health Ministry maintains a list of facilities. There you go. We click U.S. citizens in Colombia should use this list or may be able to use a delivery app such as Rappi. I told you guys, download Rappi's before you go. Rappi, R-A-P-P-I, download Rappi. It's the delivery service that brings you everything. Well, not everything, but pretty much everything. You must pay for your own test. Neither the Colombian government nor the U.S. Embassy will pay for a COVID-19 test. The average cost of testing varies widely from about 100,000 Colombian pesos, which is going to be around, $30. Pesos for antigen tests and as much as 300,000 Colombian pesos for a PCR test. Everybody's going to want to do the rapid test. Number one is rapid, it's quick, and it's cheaper. Test results will often be sent to you by email or text message. COVID-19 vaccine information. Has the government of Colombia approved the COVID-19 vaccine for use? Yes, the Colombian government's regulatory authority has approved the Pfizer vaccine for use. The United States government does not plan to provide COVID-19 vaccinations to private U.S. citizens overseas. Please follow your host country developments and guidelines for COVID-19 vaccination. For more information, see the Colombian government, and here's a link here also. Entry and exit required. Now I'm going to hold this off to another page, but let's jump to the next story I have. And this is a question and answer. This is on I downloaded it as a PDF, but it's on the CDC's website. Required for proof of negative COVID-19 test or recovery from COVID-19 for air passengers arriving in the United States. This was dated last night, the 25th. Again, it's early on the 26th right now. This is the first day that they have enacted this, where you have to have a negative test result to get back in. So let's just jump right in. If you plan to travel internationally, you will need to get tested no more than 3 days before your travel by air to the United States. and show your negative result to the airline before you board your flight, or be prepared to show documentation of recovery, proof of a recent positive viral test, and a letter from your healthcare provider or public health officials stating that you were cleared to travel. You'll understand why they're accepting those a little bit lower. Basically, you can pop positive for up to 3 months if you've already had the virus. Let's say you had the virus 2 months ago, and whether you felt anything or not doesn't matter, but it lasted, a couple of weeks, and you didn't even realize it, but yet 2 months later, you still pop positive. So you need to know this before you go and you don't know you have it. I say before you leave, take a test. Because what if you don't have it before you leave and you go down there and you take a test? You didn't know you had it, and now you're positive. And guess what? You stuck like Chuck. What you gonna do? Anyway, okay, so on January 12, 2021, the CDC announced an order requiring that all passengers arriving from the U.S. From a foreign country to get tested no more than 3 days prior to their flight departs and to present a negative result for documentation having recovered from COVID-19 to the airline before boarding the flight. Air passengers will be required to confirm the information they presented is true in the form of an attestation. So there's a separate form where you have to just write down, I attest to this, check off, and fill out. It's just a 1-page deal. I showed you that, or 2 pages. I showed you that last week also. This order is effective as of 12:01. This is about 6 hours or so ago. This just started. So anybody coming into the U.S. now, there you go. And I always get questions about transfers, and it addresses the transfers a little bit low. This is, again, I'm going to try to get through this as quick as possible, but this is some valuable information if you're going to fly soon. Okay, as of January 26, 2021, this order replaces the previous order signed by CDC Director on December 25th, requiring a negative pre-departure COVID-19 test for airline passengers arriving to the United States from the United Kingdom. So again, they've modified that order, and that order is still in place. You still can't come from the UK and a bunch of other places, a bunch of countries in Europe. Okay, after you travel, get tested 3 to 5 days after travel and stay home to self-quarantine for 7 days after travel. This is after you've gotten back into the United States. Even if you test negative, stay home to self-quarantine for the full 7 days. If your test is positive, isolate yourself and protect others from getting infected. If you don't get tested, it's safest to stay home to self-quarantine for 10 days after travel. Avoid being around people who are at increased risk for severe illness. Stay away from me for 14 days, whether you get tested or not. Okay, here's the question and answer. Good questions and good answers too. So I'll go through as quick as I can. Does this requirement apply to U.S. citizens? This order applies to all air passengers 2 years of age and older traveling to the United States, including U.S. citizens and legal permanent residences. Are foreign nationals no longer subject to presidential proclamation travel restrictions if they can show a negative test or document of recovery? And of course, that answer is yes. I'm not even going to read that one. Are territories or possessions of the United States considered foreign countries for the purpose of this order? No. The order to present or documentation of negative COVID-19 test or recovery from COVID-19 does not apply to air passengers flying from U.S. territories or possessions to a U.S. state. So and U.S. territories and possessions of the United States include American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So if you're down there, you're straight. You don't have to worry about the test coming back. You are already in the U.S. When does this order take effect? This order will go into effect January 26th, again, 6 hours ago at midnight. What is an attestation? An attestation is a statement, writing, entry, or other representation under 18, whatever section this, that confirms that the information provided is true. So you're just swearing that it's true. It's kind of like people jumping in front of me in line right now, swearing that they have underlying issues for this vaccine. Does this order apply to land border crossings? No. The requirement of this order is only for air travel to the U.S. Who is checking to make sure that people have a negative test or documentation of recovery before they board a plane for the U.S.? The airline will confirm the COVID-19 negative test result or documentation of recovery for all passengers before boarding. So the onus is on the airline industry to take care of this. So you should not be able to board a plane without this. Will the CDC provide information about international testing locations? CDC is unable to provide information about local locations, availability of testing in other countries. Check COVID-19 country-specific information. Now, I sent you that before. Well, and just in case, I'm going to click on this right quick because I showed you the one for Colombia, but there's also one for other states too. So you just come to this link and you go down and you find the state. Again, let's say Colombia, but you could just as easy choose Costa Rica, and it'll show you locations there. And I haven't clicked on this yet, but yeah. Well, here's the specific information for there, and there'll be a link again from this one to there. And again, this is the state.gov. So, okay. Does an at-home test qualify? The order requires a lab report to be presented to the airline or to the public health official upon request. A home specimen collection kit that is tested in a laboratory should meet the requirements if such methods have been approved by the country's national health authority. So they are doing this in Colombia. I know this because I hear from you guys. They are doing home. They'll come pick it up. They'll and deliver it for you too. So check that list again. What is a verifiable test result? A verifiable test result must be in the form of a written documentation, paper or electronic, of a laboratory test result. Testing must be performed using a viral test or antigen test, and negative test results must be presented to the airline prior to boarding. The test result documentation must include information that identifies the person, the specimen collection date, and the type of test. A negative test result must show the test was done within 3 days before the flight. That's 72 hours, remember. Passengers, what if I had COVID-19 vaccine or have tested positive for antibodies? Do I still need a negative COVID-19 test or documentation of recovery from COVID-19? Yes, at this time, all passengers traveling to the United States, regardless of vaccination or antibody status, are required to provide a negative COVID-19 test result. So even if you have taken the vaccine, you still have to get this test. This is as of today. Remember, this is today. So this is news today. And next week, there'll be news. And 2 weeks from then, there'll be news also. So when do I need to get a test to travel to the U.S. and what kind of test do I need? And it's the same thing without going through all of this again. Within 3 days, 72 hours, you need to take either a PCR test or an antigen test. And another name for antigen test is the rapid test. So you get your choice of both. Okay. Do I still need a test if my trip is shorter than 3 days? You guys, I tell you, some of you guys are going to go for the weekend, but here's the answer. Yes, you will still need a test if your trip is shorter than 3 days. So if you go down there, you need to take a test before you go. And as soon as you get there, you need to take a test before you head back, which is cool because as soon as you get there, just do it at the airport. A viral test that's done in the U.S. can be done to fulfill the requirements of the order as long as the specimen was taken no more than 3 days prior to your return flight. So yes, you do. These are some good questions and answers because a lot of these questions you guys have already asked me. If you return travel is longer than 3 days after your test, you will need to be retested before your flight. There you go. What if I recently recovered from COVID-19? CDC does not recommend getting tested again in the 3 months after a positive viral test, as long as you do not have symptoms of COVID-19. If you have had a positive viral test in the past 3 months, and you meet the criteria of isolation, you may travel instead with documentation of your positive viral test results and a letter from your healthcare provider saying that you're okay to fly. Okay, a letter from your healthcare provider or public health official that clears you to end isolation. What happens if I don't take a test and I want to travel to the U.S.? Okay. Air passengers traveling to the U.S. are required to present a negative COVID-19 test result or documentation of recovery. Airlines must confirm the negative test result or documentation of recovery for all passengers before boarding. If a passenger chooses not to present a test result or documentation of recovery, the airline must deny boarding to the passenger. So without the test, you ain't coming back. Without the negative test result, always specify you can get a test, but if it's positive, you can't come back to the U.S. This closes the door for me on a lot of places. I mean, you better have some time and you better have an understanding job or no job or work for yourself or work online. Because if you get stuck over there or get stuck anywhere, I mean, you taking some chances here. Okay. What if I'm overseas and I can't get tested before my flight? Passengers should contact the airline recording options for changing their departure date to allow time for a test. See if the airline has identified options for testing or if there are options available for changing the flights to transit through a location where you can get tested. So it's saying, okay, you can't get it there. How about you go over here where you know they have a test and then transfer? But you have to have a test before you come in now. This is good. This is all, I know people are upset about it, but hey, it's all, nothing is guaranteed. It's about mitigation. Okay, what happens if I test positive? There's a good question. People should self-isolate and delay their travel if symptoms develop or a pre-departure test result is positive until they have recovered from COVID-19. So stay in the country that you are until you're better and you can get a negative test. And that negative test may not come but a month, 2 months from now. Who's to say? Airlines must refuse to board anyone who does not present a negative test result for COVID-19 or documentation of recovery. What kind of documentation of my test result do I need to present? CDC requires that air passengers arriving into the U.S. have a paper or electronic copy of their test result for review by the airline before they board and potential review by public health officials after you arrive in the U.S. Can I get an exemption or waiver to the testing requirement? Exemptions may be granted on an extremely limited basis when emergency travel, like an emergency for medical evacuation, must occur or preserve someone's life, health against serious danger, or physical safety, and testing cannot be completed before travel. So those are extreme. I doubt if you're going to run into that. Do passengers also need to have a copy of their attestation as well as the airline retaining it? Passengers are only required to retain a paper or electronic copy of their negative test result or documentation of recovery for the entry into the entirety of their itinerary. The attestation should be submitted and retained by the airline or aircraft operator. So you're not going to be carrying that around with you. What happens if my flight is delayed and it goes over the 3-day limit for testing? There you go. If your flight is delayed before departure, you will need to get retested if the delay causes your test to fall outside of the 3 days pre-departure testing period. So they're not playing. They mean 3 days, 72 hours. That's what they mean. If I am connecting through the U.S. to another country, do I still need to get tested? Yes. Any flight entering the U.S., even for a connection, will be required testing before departure. Okay. If I have one or more connecting flights to the U.S., does the 3-day period apply to the first flight or the last one? Good question. I've gotten this one too. If you are arriving on a direct flight to the U.S., it must be done within 3 days before your flight to the U.S. departs. If you are arriving to the U.S. via one or more connecting flights, your test must be done in the 3 days before the first flight in your itinerary, but only if the connecting flights were booked as a single passenger record with a final destination in the U.S. and each connection layover is no longer than 24 hours. If your connecting flight to the U.S. was booked separately or on a connection in your itinerary lasts more than 24 hours, you will need to get tested within 3 days before your flight arrives in the U.S. So there you go. If I tested negative before my flight, do I need to get another test when I get to the U.S.? CDC recommends the travelers get tested 3 to 5 days after travel. And again, this is a recommendation. After travel, and stay at home or otherwise self-quarantine for 7 days after travel. Even if you test negative, stay home for the full 7 days. If you don't get tested, it is safest to stay home for 10 days. Always follow state and local recommendations or requirements related to travel. Now, I know President Biden has now put out a message to the entire country. I think there's 25 states that they have not implemented any type of travel restrictions, and he's given them 2 weeks to give them recommendations. So there you go. It's going to be every state. Do I need to get a test before leaving the U.S.? At this time, CDC does not have a testing requirement for outbound travelers, but recommends that you get tested with a viral test 1 to 3 days before you travel internationally. Travel should check with the international destinations for their entry requirements as well. So I say take the test too. Take it before you go. Because what if you're positive and you don't know? Then you're not coming back. You know you're not coming back, or you know you're not coming back for a while. And what if you, and they say you can test positive a month later, two months later. Tony says up to 3 months later. So there you go. What is the justification for letting people who recently recovered from COVID-19 travel without a negative test? What about reinfections? People who have recovered from COVID-19 can continue to test positive for up to 3 months after their infection. CDC does not recommend retesting within 3 months after the person with COVID-19 first developed symptoms or the date of their first positive viral diagnostic test if their infection was asymptomatic. Even if they have recovered from COVID-19, people who develop symptoms of COVID-19 should not travel and should seek care for testing and evaluation. This guidance may be updated as additional information about people who have recovered from COVID-19 becomes available. So it's fluid, but let me reread that first one. People who have recovered from COVID-19 can continue to test positive for up to 3 months after their infection. So there it is. I say get a test before you're going to go, if you're going to go. Again, I'm not trying to sway people either way. I'm just trying to give you the information to make a decision. Do me a favor and let's take a break for a like. Thumbs up. Both my thumbs up. Okay, thanks for that, if you did. Okay, so will CDC reimburse me for the cost of a COVID-19 test? CDC is not able to reimburse travelers for COVID-19 testing fees. You may wish to contact your insurance provider or the location that provided you your test about payment. Now, you need to get travel insurance. I mean, for you to go and not have travel insurance is, to me, a little screwy. Get your travel insurance. Whatever it is, pay for it. Because if you get delayed, it's going to be out of the pocket. It's going to be hurtful on you, whether you have bank or not. Okay, and this is the last section about aircraft operators, and we don't need to jump through that. Okay, this form right here is this one is particular to Colombia. As you can see, it's in Spanish, but I have it translated as a section that shows this to me in English. This is for travelers to Colombia, and this is from the Colombian government. And I'll leave a link for this also. All travelers coming from abroad must have a negative PCR test for COVID-19. Again, no antigen test to get to Colombia. You must have a PCR test taken no more than 96 hours before boarding. However, in accordance with Resolution 002 of 2021, airlines must allow the boarding of travelers who do not have this test when they verbally state that they have had difficulties taking it or obtaining the result in the term required prior to the flight. The verbal manifestation of the passengers will be understood to be made under oath. I attest that I haven't had time to get my results or haven't had time to do the test. And okay, come on board. But now you're in Colombia. In these cases, once entering the country, the traveler must inform the Migración Colombia officer either of the chosen option. 1, to take a PCR test in Colombia and keep preventative isolation until the movement in which a negative result for COVID-19 is obtained, or 2, to keep mandatory preventative isolation for 14 days or during the term indicated by the health authority. The passenger must keep the days of isolation in their place of residence or their place of accommodation. The Secretary of Health of the place of the landing and or destination will be in charge of verifying that the traveler keeps the preventative isolation. So they're going to check on you. The value of the PCR test and the cost derived from preventative isolation will be borne by the traveler. Verbal statements will be stored in the Migración Colombia system. So there you go. That's from Colombia. So again, this was just a quick one. I hope it was a quick one. I just wanted to get this information out to you as soon as possible. Do me a favor. Again, if you're getting any benefit out of my videos, go down and hit the subscribe button, click the bell to be alerted of any new videos, and like. Like helps the YouTube algorithm. The more you hit like, the more YouTube decides to share it. Thanks for watching, guys, and be safe.
We have a YouTube channel. Like it. Please comment and share if you like the video. Please subscribe and kick the bell.